I'll call this meeting to order. This is the regular school board meeting for Northfield Public Schools. It is Monday, April 23rd, 2012. Dr. Richardson, there are a couple things in the table file.
Yes, if you will notice on your table file, we have some additional personnel items, several appointments, and one resignation. And then also under items for information, you may have, as you look through policy 515, be questioning one of the sections as to why it was removed from the policy. And we did get MSBA to clarify that the modification that was made in that section is because Federal Law 42 USC 14071 was repealed. And so they have repealed that section of the law, and I think to be as efficient as possible, then they just dropped another new section in on top of that. But that's why that has been removed and isn't there anymore.
Very good. All right. Well, we will add these items to the agenda as we move forward. We're on to public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the community to address the board. Is there anyone here who would like to address the board? No? All right. We'll move on to approval of the minutes. Board members, you should have in your packet the minutes from the school board meeting on April 9th. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ann, seconded by Jeff. All those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
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 Motion carries. All right, announcements and recognition.
Okay, and I have a page full today. So, and some of you may be able to help me if I mispronounce one of these names. And again, I apologize in advance to anybody who listens to this if I accidentally do not pronounce your name correctly. But we have lots of people that we want to congratulate. First of all, just coming back to a previous event that we announced about Greenvale Park's Evening of the Arts celebration. Their attendance for that celebration was over 700 adults and students. So outstanding opportunity for Greenvale to show off the skills of their students in a variety of different arts areas. We had 7 of our middle school students who participated in the 2012 National High School Chess Tournament, which was held this year in Minneapolis from April 13th to 15th. Christoph Zweifel, Henry Gainey, Jackson Hillman, Evan Jasnock, Leif Berdahl, Jasper Egge, and Gus Onasorgi. Thank you very much. We're in terms of Team 1 under 800 rating. Jasper, Jackson, Christoph, and Evan took 10th place overall. Jasper also received an individual trophy for placing 20th overall. Team 2, which were unrated players of Gus, Henry, and Leif, took 25th place. And Daniel Clordy represented the high school in the under 1200 division, and Kai Pei represented Northfield High School in the championship bracket. Rebecca Messer is the coach, and David Ludischer is the assistant coach for that activity. Also, bravo for the cast, crew, and volunteers of the Northfield Middle School musical. We had faculty directors Kathy Penning and Rose Turnercliffe guided over 50 students as they participated in 2 successful performances of the musical Adventures of Flat Stanley Jr. on April 20th and 21st. And all reports were it was an outstanding presentation. Congratulations to our Congratulations to the Northfield High School Knowledge Bowl team and Coach Troy Coors for a great season. Over the past several weeks, the team has competed in subsections and sections. Of the 48 teams that began the qualification process, Northfield was the #1 team on section finals day. This is the 4th consecutive year when a Northfield Knowledge Bowl team qualified for state competition. It's Northfield's 8th trip to the state tournament under the coaching of Mr. Coors. The Northfield team finished 12th out of 24 AA schools. AA is the largest class for state competition. Over 4,000 Minnesota students completed the Knowledge Bowl this year, and 5 competitors from Northfield were part of the final 200 competitors at the state meet. Northfield's 2011-12 Knowledge Bowl state tournament team members are Eduardo Armillo, Connor Rohr, Chris Hager, Tom
DeBrow.
and Muriel Carpenter. Also, our Northfield High School Activities Department, in conjunction with Northfield Booster Club, is again sponsoring a Ford Test Drive for Dollars fundraiser. The money raised will help pay for rising costs of awards, participation, letter certificates, chenille ends, bars, pins, etc., as well as helping to cover waiver of fees. The details are, all you need to do is come in, test drive a Ford vehicle. $20 per test drive goes directly to the Northfield Booster Club from the Ford Corporation. I was able to drive a nice new Mustang at the fall activity. So opportunity for you to come in. People do not have to pay to take a test drive. That's free. Drivers must be 18 years of age or older. They do need a valid driver's license, however. One driver per household. An event will be held on Saturday, May the 5th between 10 and 3 near the high school entrance off of Division Street. Again, I think this was a very popular piece last fall at one of the football games, and I think, again, the activities department Booster Club, it's a good fundraiser for them, and again, all those dollars go directly back to support high school athletics. There's been an incredibly positive feedback from schools that participated in the Minnesota Conference Festival that Northfield High School hosted on April 13th. Just a couple of quick comments from a Farmington visual arts teacher. This year's festival was, in my opinion, the most thought-out, organized festival in the years I've been teaching in Farmington. It will continue to reap its benefits as our students have come away energized, engaged with new and creative ideas. From a fine arts teacher at the Academy of Holy Angels, I wish to reflect our thanks to you, your colleagues in school. We felt welcome and energized by the high-quality workshops and the great organization. Our students couldn't say enough about how much they enjoyed their day. Of course, I think a large thank you goes to all of the Northfield High School staff who put in a lot of hard work to organize that day and to provide for all the students from the Minnesota Conference. And then finally, the high school office would like to remind school board members that you're invited to the Academic Awards Distinguished Alumni Scholarship Program on Sunday, May the 6th at 2 p.m. at the Northfield Middle School, with a reception that will follow the program. So again, that's Sunday, May the 6th at 2 p.m. at the Northfield Middle School. Those are all the announcements I have this evening.
Ann?
I have one more. I guess it's become pretty annual festival at the high school called Arts a la Carte. It's going to be May 4th, and the public, of course, is welcome to come. And there will be all sorts of activities going on to make art, to view art. There's an art contest, and there'll be music. It's really a fun event.
And it's at the high school.
And it's at the high school, yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else? Julie?
I just wanted to echo Chris's comments about the Flat Stanley Junior musical at the middle school. It was such an amazing performance. And Rose Turnicliffe and Kathy Penning have to feel so good about what they did with those 50 young students and their performance. It was just really amazing. Very well done.
Well, Rose bent my ear on Saturday morning when Matt and I were over for the technology public information session. She was about that far off the floor. I mean, she was really excited about how it had gone. So
She has a lot to be really proud
very,
of.
very
Both of them
positive.
do. Good.
Good. Anyone else? No?
Same show.
Yeah.
Excellent. But I particularly was pleased to see the behind-the-scenes activities. There was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that wasn't on stage, and it was just so wonderful to see it all come together. Great show.
Great. Anyone else? No? All right. Items for discussion. We have two, and now we're going to start with looks like the child nutrition budget and program. All right. Pam?
All right, thank you. I am excited to come and talk to you about the child nutrition budget for the next school year. And I want to apologize in advance for the small print on my slides. There's so many details, and I realize I might be one of the only people who cares about the detail, but with the new reauthorization, they're very important, actually, as we move forward. So I included those, but I'll try not to go into great detail on them. But just some program highlights from this year. We expanded our Farm to School initiative. We work with 2 new partners I have a whole slide that's going to talk about how many total partners we have. It's been such a great thing for us to be here in Northfield and to really be embracing serving locally grown food in our schools. And I think the kids have benefited. The quality is great. It's just been good all around. The second point is we work with the Midwest Dairy Council on the Fuel Up to Play 60 grants at both Bridgewater and Greenville Park this year. The middle school was involved in that program for the 2 years previous to this year, and now Bridgewater and Greenville Park are still involved with the Dairy Council and their Fuel Up to Play 60 grants. We also worked with the Dairy Council to purchase jointly. They put in money, and we also put in money from the food service fund to purchase a breakfast kiosk. We have a very low percentage of participation in breakfast, and we all know what an important meal breakfast is, so we work jointly, and I have a slide that shows a picture of that also. We just opened our breakfast kiosk here at the high school the first day after spring break on March 26th, so, so far so good, and hopefully we'll just be able to, again, make breakfast accessible for all students, because that's really one of the main goals, is that no matter which door of the school you're coming into and rushing off to class, that if you do want to pick up something nutritious before you rush into class, that you're able to do so. We piloted for the whole school at Greenville Park the healthy snack cart. And, if there's one thing I get emails on most frequently, it's probably this. And that pilot for the whole school at Greenville Park has been going very well. And it is our intention to roll that out to both Bridgewater and Sibley next year as an offering for parents and students. Normally, the healthy snack cart is done in correlation with milk break at the schools, but it doesn't have to be. It could stand alone. We had a lot of new menu offerings at all of our sites on our main menu, which, featured more whole grain products, lower saturated fat, many unbreaded main entree products, and more fresh fruits and vegetables. And kind of you'll hear that same thing throughout my presentation. We got all new marketing signage at the high school and the middle school. I have pictures of that because sometimes pictures just leave an impression versus seeing the before and after. And it was our first full year of our after-school snack option at the middle school. Last year we removed all vending out of the middle school, and there's a ton of activities that take place at the middle school. So we really saw the need for something to be offered. Some kids do plan ahead, and it's great for them if they can remember to pack along something first thing in the morning. But for the kids who don't, it's been really successful because there's a lot of healthy offerings, and they know we're only open for a very short period of time, like a 20-minute period at a time, right as school gets out. So it's nice and quick, and they get service quick, and they're able to get, whole fruit or a smoothie or a bottle of water if needed. And then this was our first year of having, the first year since I've been here. I don't know about your first year, but first year since I've been here about having separate elementary and secondary school lunch menus. And really, based on our participation, especially at the elementary level, which has gone up consistently throughout the year, I think that was a good decision to separate those menus out. I think just the taste preferences and the familiarity with foods, increases at a lot quicker rate when students are secondary students. So it was a good, seems to be a good idea to just separate those menus out, and we will continue to do that next year. I just want to run through some pictures. So again, this is at the high school cafeteria area. You can see the, like hot stuff and grab and go and main event. Those are all of our old signage names. And we worked with actually Signs of Perfection, a company that's based out of Plymouth, and came up with some new fun colors, some different names, savored flavors for our main line, Energy Express for some of our quicker grab-and-go items. So again, this is all at the high school, but we did the exact same signage at the middle school, and we had the old main event, and we already saw those. So grilled great. We have some panels on the wall that just, cafeteria separated out, and just a little bit more current, updated, bright colors. This is the new breakfast kiosk at the high school. And again, it's right in door 37, so it's on the other side of the school. The last time we tried something like a breakfast kiosk, we really had it closely located near where we already serve breakfast. And so really it didn't make sense from that perspective. So it looks good every day. And so that's just what that looks like. And again, that was purchased jointly with a grant from the Midwest Dairy Council and us. So just picture that. We got this, the Midwest Dairy Council completely paid for this with the Fuel Up to Play 60 grant at Bridgewater Elementary. And again, gives us the opportunity to safely hold cold foods. So fruits, vegetables, sometimes condiments, cold condiments on a taco day or something like that. Kids can serve, use the cart on both sides. It's portable, it's mobile, it has some application if they are going to do some catering over there. It's really a great piece of equipment, and it just looks good when it's full and fresh. So getting on to back to our farm to school highlights. We now have a total of 7 partners, and a lot of people that have been our partners for 3, going on 4 years now this school year. Bridgewater Produce and Open Hands Farm, L&R Poultry and Produce. Applewood Orchard was a new partner last year. Fireside Orchard, Ferndale Farms in Cannon Falls, and Seeds Farm was a new partner last year as well. For total purchases of $14,000 just in the fall, and it was about $2,500 more than school year 10-11. So. Again, we talked about the Midwest Dairy Grants, but I just wanted to point out that one of the Midwest Dairy Council student ambassadors is actually a freshman here at the high school, Madeline Gainey, who's a Northfield High School 9th grader, and if you look on the Midwest Dairy Council's website, she's one of the student ambassadors who really is trying to lead the charge, and in her case at Northfield High School, to really try to motivate her fellow students to get 60 minutes of physical activity every day. That's really the goal behind the whole Fuel Up to Play 60 combined effort of the NFL and the Dairy Council. At both Greenville Park and Bridgewater, I was talking to the phys ed teachers at both of those schools. It varies about the number of kids who have actually taken the pledge, because in order for kids to take the pledge, they have to go onto the computer, and they have to have permission from their parents to go onto the computer, and so it's not necessarily uncomplicated. But at both of those schools, it's about 100 kids so far who have taken the pledge and signed off on the fact that they want to lead a lifestyle that involves having 60 minutes of physical activity every day. And again, the activity could be whatever they like to do. It's not saying that you're going to run for 60 minutes every day. It could be, walking to school, biking, just a combined total of 60 minutes of physical activity. With the Dairy Council grants, you saw the picture of the new cart at Bridgewater, and at Greenville Park Elementary, we actually combined 2 years of the grant funding, because a certain percentage of the funding of the grant has to be devoted to child nutrition, and we actually carried over the funding from last year and combined it with this year at Greenville Park, and have a brand new milk cooler that's larger, and it's great. We love it. So if you're over there and wondering, that was purchased with the Midwest Dairy Grant. And then at Bridgewater, as far as the PE, I think that they have plans to do a disc golf course that's going to be somewhere between Bridgewater and the middle school for, again, all the equipment for disc golf. So really exciting to be able to, work with these grants and bring this funding into our school district. And then we talked about the new breakfast kiosk at the high school. That was a combined partnership. So here we get into the really small print, and I'm going to hit the high points, but
This is the federal rule, though, right?
basically, yeah, it's actually 288 pages, so a condensed, I guess, summary, but it's super small. So pull out your magnifying glass. But anyway, the rule was final in January of 2012, and it looks very similar to last year when it was a proposed rule. It really came out, very similar in a lot of areas. The bottom line and the intent is, how can we all get kids to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables? And that's really a summary of this tiny, tiny print that we've got going on here. But vegetable subgroups are important now, so you have to get, vegetables in each of these categories of vegetable versus just having a vegetable generic, could include any vegetable offering. You have to have dark green. We've already converted at all of our sites from like shredded iceberg lettuce to shredded romaine lettuce. The kids have not said a word. But frankly, it looks a lot better. I mean, it looks, to me, just more appealing and more, it's bright green. It looks fantastic. And all of our salads with 80% romaine and 20% iceberg, again, they look really good. They look great, bright colors. All the other colors of anything else that we add to it just pops out. So, for our case, the kids are used to a lot of these things. Some of the groups are harder, the beans and the peas. And again, it's not our intention to just serve these items. We want the kids to consume them and to eat them and to enjoy them and to at least try them, at the very least. So that's certainly going to be the challenge. There's now a minimum and a maximum for calories each week versus just a set number. So again, the minimum and the maximum have to do with activity level. So, every kid, every individual adult has a different activity level, so the range of calories really support that difference. Certainly with a super athletic kid versus somebody who's not as athletic and doesn't get a lot of aerobic activity per day. The sodium did get increased in the amount that we can serve, and all of the new requirements, we just have to gradually start to make changes. The first year that we have to make changes with the sodium is school year 13-14. But again, we've already been very conscious about what the new requirements are. We look at that every day. We eliminate purchasing products based on this already. The manufacturers are really, they have been really good about giving us products that are, lower in sodium, that are going to help us meet all the new requirements. So those things have already been taking place. Whole grains, again, by school year 14-15, which obviously isn't next year, but soon, all the grains will have to be whole grains right now, and for next school year, half the grains have to be whole grain. The meat alternate, that's a little bit different too, because it came out different than the proposed rule, that it's now acceptable to have 1 ounce of meat alternate, like for example, a mini burger, a mini beef burger might be 1 ounce or 1.5 ounces. That could be a serving for grades K through 2 versus 2 of those. So again, these things are all good. We are completely in support of them. I think that they will lead to great changes for everyone. The fluid milk is no change at all for us, because again, we've been doing this since I've been here, but you can only offer skim milk. Any flavored milk you offer has to be skim or 1% white. So, and again, we've been doing that. So that's no change. The major impacts, and again, these are, I try to hit the high points even though they're very small print, but the government, again, is supposed to support every meal we serve next year with an additional 6 cents. So that's if you're a normal paid, reduced, or free lunch. So every meal we serve, we're supposed to get an additional 6 cents. Now, the caveat to that is that our menus have to be approved by the Department of Education. And so they're a little bit, since it was just January when the final rule, they're a little bit, they haven't given us a lot of direction about how that's going to take place or how every school district in Minnesota is going to get their menus approved by September, the first day of school. So we're keeping the optimism that that is actually going to take place and be a reality. Because I did work that revenue piece into my budget. So if it's not going to be a good thing. But the big sticking point that's been really controversial and talked about in a lot of school districts is this equity in normal paying lunch pricing that is now mandated. And what it really does is it takes the difference between the free meal reimbursement and the paid reimbursement, and then, which is, as you can see, $2.51, and then you have to have a plan that would bring your paid meal price up to that. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute because I gave you a 3-year plan last year, so I'm going to talk about that in a minute, but just keep that number in mind as far as $2.51. It increases the MD review requirement from, again, 5 years to 3 years, and again, they're going to have to obviously hire more staff because they used to come out to the schools to review the programs just on a 5-year basis, and now it's changed it over to 3 years. So the USDA, the next bullet point, has to develop nutrition standards for all the foods sold in schools. Those are not out yet, but they project that hopefully by the end of next year that they will be out. So that would mandate it would update all of the regulations surrounding foods sold outside of the school day or food sold a la carte, either one of those areas. The fruit serving size would increase at breakfast, not next year, but in 13-14, and lunch next year. And we have already been increasing the serving sizes at the secondary schools for the fruit servings because, frankly, kids are hungrier. We want them to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. So we have been doing this year as well. We talked about the grains and the requirements for the vegetables, and again about sodium being a gradual transition, and it's not as restrictive as it was proposed. So anyways, some of the financial trends, just as you know from being retail consumers, the cost of food has been increasing basically in all categories all year, driven largely by two things, the cost of fuel and the cost of commodities. So that is just something that, is very real, and it's part of my projection as well for next year because they project that will continue. Just some other program facts. Our participation in school lunch is about anywhere between 2,800 and 3,000 lunches a day. Actually, would be a high day, but it's right around 76%. The elementary schools are higher. Bridgewater is actually the highest, and but Sibley has had probably the greatest increase in school lunches in participation. So our participation in school breakfast is low. It's at like 430 a day. It's about 11%. When I got here, it was probably close to 6, and then last year it was around 8. So it's been gradually increasing. So that's a good thing. We invested again in real silverware, and we're continuing to do that. But we do need to each year, try to analyze how we can work within our school as a school team to just get less and less silverware thrown away. It certainly can't be at the last stop when everything goes after the composting, after the recycling, and the whole tray gets, or otherwise a lot of silverware goes. But we try to put buckets and stuff, way before you get to that process in the line. And we've tried different things, and we'll continue to work on that so that we're not purchasing lots of silverware that's unintentionally being thrown out. Again, we increased our investment in our Farm to School initiative, basically spending an additional $4,000 this year because we do have a few things planned here in the spring as well with the Farm to School. So hopefully we'll be able to carry those out as well. Our labor costs increased by about $11,000 in the middle of this year with the health care coverage changed and the non-discrimination. So actually our group had the biggest impact, which was a great thing for my staff and something that I totally support, but it just had the largest impact because they were paying the most. Any person on my staff who had health care coverage was actually at the highest level of support. So the food cost year to date is actually on track with the budget because we did forecast the increases last year. So, just as a FYI, that's a good thing. So some recommendations for the next school year. Part of my 3-year plan last year was that, this school year we had a 15-cent across the board increase, that next year we would have no meal price increase. And then the following year, 13-14, we would have another 15-cent across the board increase based on the new federal guidelines with the price meal equity that's written into the reauthorization. And again, next year, no change in the milk price of 50 cents a la carte. We plan to continue improving our a la carte offerings and getting as close as we can to meeting all the Healthier U.S. School Challenge requirements, which basically have to do with saturated fat, calories per serving, and portion size, the size of any beverage or the size of any snack. We plan to purchase a new combi oven for the high school that'll allow them, first of all, to cook items a lot quicker, and the quality is very high because that combi oven uses both steam and convection cooking, so you keep the moisture in the products, and usually the products hold a lot better. So we're excited about that. We're going to purchase all new computer workstations and keypads for the high school, all the high school workstations, which there are 5, and then all 3 elementary schools. I asked Matt's team to pull me the information on when the last time was, and most of those computers were purchased in 2003. So, computers, they've had a good life. Matt said I should be doing a happy dance that they've lasted this long. So, right?
Correct.
So anyways, we're going to replace those, get wireless capability, because we do have that issue in some of the schools. With occasionally we'll have plugs, running along and accidentally get kicked out in the middle of lunchtime. So that's an unfortunate situation. So try to do some problem solving. And we anticipate that the labor negotiations, when we do the new agreement, will be about a $23,000 impact total for my total budget. And basically the budget, we're not into the numbers yet, but is set again at a break even this year as it was last year. And just as an update onto last year, though, is we're currently on track to end the school year with a positive fund balance. It was set at a break even at about a positive $200, and I looked today, and my best estimate is that it's at a positive $75,000. So hopefully nothing will go down hearing me say that, like a large piece of equipment, so hope not. But some of our initiatives for next year is, obviously we're going to have a menu cycle, and I have to be honest, I've had this just bad vision. When I hear the word menu cycle, I think of a hospital. But anyways, in our case, it'll actually be good because, again, we need to make sure that we're offering a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, that they're different fruits and vegetables every day. So really what that means for us and the folks, our main distributor, is we need to identify on the menu what they are, and make sure that we're menuing them, that all the portion sizes are correct for all age levels. So I think it'll be a good thing. I'm getting over it. I think we just need to choose carefully all of our offerings. We're going to try to the extent possible move fruits and vegetables to the beginning of the serving lines. Easier in some locations than others, and we're trying to tackle that as a opportunity right now to see the best way that we can do that. But we all know when we're hungry and we end up in a cafeteria area, usually the first things you see, if they look great and fresh, they go on your tray and you're all excited, and then you make your way down and select maybe a main entree that goes along with it. So we're trying very hard to do that. Talked about the snack cart rollout for Sibley and Bridgewater, and information will go out to both of those schools. Probably both in the spring and in the fall. That's the way we did it at Greenville Park. It seemed to work well, and then people knew what it was all about and knew what to expect. The Fuel Up to 60 will be in its second grant year at Bridgewater next year, so we'll be doing something else with them, and again, trying to use that money to bring something to our program that does help us to be able to meet all the new regulations. We're going to do electronic free and reduced application rollout this summer, which will be different and new for us, and I'm working through just a few of the little questions that I have with Skyward, our software folks, because actually it should be very slick and very quick and much quicker than the stale mail, and if you have an incomplete application and we either have to call and email you back. So we're excited about that. The Department of Defense Fresh Produce Program, when I was in Robbinsdale, we were one of the first districts in Minnesota who was actually selected to participate in this. What it does is it allows you to use your commodity dollars from the USDA to purchase fresh fruits and vegetables. So it's a great thing. And it was opened up now this year, a couple weeks ago, to all school districts. So we signed up, of course. We were one of the first ones to sign up to do this. This is a great thing. And we committed $40,000 in commodity dollars to be able to purchase, again, fresh fruits and vegetables throughout the year. So very excited about that. That is great. The My Plate Nutrition Education Curriculum rollout by grade level. We purchased some additional nutrition education curriculum. I worked with Heather Ryden, just talking through the different curriculum that was in the elementary age schools, level schools right now. And then Child Nutrition purchased some additional My Plate Nutrition Education to roll out to all the schools that they can use it as they see fit. This year in April, we rolled it out to the 4th grade level at all of the schools. And I gotta say, it's simple, but it's good. That's what I love about the whole new My Plate. So we have laminated posters of the My Plate that are black and white, and then we have food models that are all broken apart. Different choices of protein, different breads, and different grains, and different vegetables, and then the kids basically get into small groups of 5 or 6 and work together to create a healthy plate. And really, our main message, and one of the main things that we want them to remember, is that half your plate, or half your lunch tray, I always say, should be fresh fruits and vegetables. So they can look every day. It's very simple. It's very easy. They can look, and it's been interesting because they've been reporting back to their cafeteria managers in the schools how they're doing, whether they're doing good or bad on a daily basis. So I think, it was just a quick, fun activity, but hopefully it'll be able to be rolled out to more grade levels, and we can certainly help with the instruction, or the teachers themselves can just get the curriculum from the site manager and use it how they deem that it would be best. And I'm looking to form a work group in the fall of next year to look at the Healthier U.S. School Challenge guidelines for the secondary schools. In the month of April, I actually signed up for a team nutrition grant opportunity with the Department of Education. So one of the team nutrition dietitian consultants is actually working with me, and our goal really is at the end of April to apply for the Healthier U.S. School Challenge for all of our elementary schools. And basically, the Healthier U.S. School Challenge is a voluntary USDA program that recognizes schools that are making great efforts in improving food quality in their school meals, and nutrition education and physical activity as a priority. And really, Northfield does a really good job in these areas, and so we're trying to just get all of the documentation in order so that we can submit it. We have to submit it here in Minnesota to the Department of Education first for review. And then, just like anything governmental, it's not a quick process, and then they review it, and, we have some back and forth if we need any other to provide them any other information. But from there, it goes to the Midwest office in Chicago, and then from there, it goes to the USDA. And really, our goal is to qualify as a silver level. There's different levels based on their criteria that they've already preset. So if all goes well, I'll keep you posted. I'll keep my fingers crossed. Hopefully it should be possible at our elementary schools. At the secondary schools, there's just like anything, as the kids move up in ages, it's a little bit more involving of the entire school, fundraising efforts, concession stands, school dances, and things that involve much more partnership and group effort and group discussion to what direction you'd like to continually all agree to move towards. So it's a little bit more, a few more meetings involved. So finally, on to the budget. And we already talked about this, and I know these numbers are small too, but hopefully better on your eyes there in front of you. Basically, again, we set it up to be just a break-even budget. Our goal would always be to end the school year positive, whether it's $100 or $10,000. So, it's something that, as far as I'm concerned, I track very. Right, Stephanie? Very closely, almost too closely, on a day-in-day out basis.
Never too close.
So, closely. Just trust me, closely. We talked about, again, with the expenditures, the increased salaries and wages with the contract negotiations, the benefit piece with the new federal non-discrimination clause. Food and supplies, two things, again, we anticipate the cost going up. We also anticipate some additional revenue because we've seen that rolling in with our increased participation. So based on how we're going to end the year, some of these numbers, we talked about the equipment, the oven for the high school, the computers, and so again, they just balance each other out completely. So the federal aid, again, with the 6 cents for our approved cycle menu that we're going to do. And just looking again to some program goals to launch the Healthy Snack Cart at Bridgewater and at Sidley. We're going to increase our marketing efforts for our department, both internally and externally, starting with the open houses and back to school nights. I've got some ideas that I think would be good for us during those times. A couple things. Number one, just with the new reauthorization and the changes for the kids that they're going to have to select a full serving of a fruit or a vegetable. They're not going to be able to decline both of those items and still have a reimbursable meal. So we have to do some education, obviously before that time, but also on that night. And I'd like to set up our areas as much like you would see them for a normal day of school lunch, so that just everybody is pretty clear on what the offerings are, the different choices, and so they can kind of plan out and walk through it. It's going to be different, obviously, if you have a little kindergartner who is in all-day kindergarten than somebody in 5th grade who's like, yeah, I know that's already. But still, it might be our chance for us to do some education with the parents to make sure they're all aware of all the choices that their students have and just talk through that if they have any questions. Obviously, we'd also be there doing lunch payments and explaining family access for people to check their balances. I am still, the next bullet point, I'm still working with Chester Dyrud from the Good Earth in Roseville, who's right now working on some recipes for our main lunch menu to roll out at both levels. So at the elementary, different things, and at the secondary, different things. But he's an executive chef, and again, he knows all about all of the new reauthorization and all the things. He knows the products that we're able to prepare. He's got our order guides. He's really working up some new recipes that we can put on our menu starting hopefully in September. We talked about the cycle menu. We talked about all these other things. Just the Healthier U.S. School application process update again. It would be our intention and our goal to have that application into the Minnesota Department of Education right around May 7th or 8th of this year for the elementary schools, for the 3 elementary schools. And that's it. So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Thank you, Pam. Board members, questions? No?
You indicated a increase of 15 cents across the board for year 13-14. What would be the price of a meal in that 15 cents increase?
Yep, the price of a meal at the secondary level would go up to $2.50, and at the elementary it'd be $2.35.
Okay, thank you.
And again, I think we want to reinforce with that that is being driven by federal law, which is saying there can only be there has to be a certain percentage difference between the price of a fully, with a full meal that's fully paid for versus a meal that's getting a free reduced lunch reimbursement.
Correct.
And so we have to have that differential in place in order to qualify for funding from the feds.
Correct.
And otherwise, we would not want to go there of suggesting that we could do without that funding.
Other questions? Julie?
A question and a comment. First comment, I always look forward to this presentation because you do such an amazing job, and under your leadership, I think that we should be really proud of the lunches we do serve and the snacks and everything else. And I think your job must be incredibly hard to manage all of the guidelines with a very limited budget. So, and especially your Farm to School initiative, it's really very excellent program. I had a question about free and reduced at the middle school and the high school. Do they have limits on options? Because I recall at some point, were they just able to have hot lunch and free and reduced, and did that change?
This is back to the marketing of our programs, and even I need to talk to Matt as well about possibly, because I thought of that couple weeks ago, like doing a video of choices and having it available on our website, because part of the problem is just that, and I understand it, kids are in a hurry and they don't want to stop and ask people, and I get where they're coming from and how they don't understand what their choices are. Because they don't really have limits per se. I mean, they can get an entree salad and a fruit and a milk and, a bread, and that can be a lunch, whether you're on educational benefits or not on educational benefits. You could do a build your own sub, our version of Subway. You could do something as simple as a peanut butter and jelly and cheese stick and fruit and milk. Otherwise, you could do the main lunch. But our problem and our challenge is that it's hard for kids to understand. You try different signage and then it's confusing, because they're like, what? But, it's our challenge, and it should be easier to resolve in this day with social media and just the availability to do a quick, when we walk through, or like I was saying, at the open houses, use that as an opportunity to make sure they understand all the different choices, whether it be cold or hot. And so it's certainly something that we need to improve, and we know that. And so hopefully we'll be able to make steps to address that, because a lot of people are confused. And it gets it's terrible at the middle school, because there's just a big rush of kids, 300 kids all at the same time, and everybody, where do you get in line? You get in line with your friends, whether you like what they're having or not. So then you get up there, and it's like, oh, I'm in the wrong line. So.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff?
What proactive measures do we make against child obesity?
Well, I think what...
If any, I'm just tossing that out to leave it as an open question, or statistics that you see from state, national, or local, or, how do we help at-risk kids or people that want help with, diet plans, or just kind of a general question?
Mm-hmm. Well, with any kids with special diets, they can there's a special dietary request form. We can certainly look at the products that we have available and, direct them towards that. We do the nutritional information. We link that to all of our main menu choices so that certainly they can see, it's out on the website. They could see if they wanted to, or the school nurses have it. Specifically the calories and the fat and the carb in many of the food items. I think, hopefully just making all the food every day look, as appealing as possible. We all eat with our eyes. We all want to see great looking, fresh food, cooking it correctly. And again, some of the movement with the fruits and vegetables, putting them first, instead of being the very last thing that you select. I think it's always a step in the right direction. I think the new reauthorization is fantastic in addressing some of the concerns that you're talking about, because it really does set a minimum and a maximum for calories instead of just assuming that everybody needs 700 calories every meal. It's not realistic. We all have such different activity levels, whether you're a small child or you're an adult. So, and again, the less sodium, it's hard to do. It's not easy. I've never been on a restricted sodium diet, but it would be hard. I mean, if you just look at nutrition labels at home, with some of the marinades and the things that we don't even think, contain quite a bit of sodium as a preservative, like milk. A carton of milk, has 180 milligrams of sodium. So I think these are all things that are very relevant to everyone and making good choices. I like the My Plate. I like getting that into kids' hands. It's been on the bottom of our menu all year. It'll be on the bottom of our menu all next year, because it's easy to understand. The food pyramid with all the little lines and you couldn't read any of the words. like my slides, that just confused everyone. I mean, people were like, what's red and what's orange? And nobody got it. And so, to just talk to the kids about half your lunch tray, half your plate, is half of it fruits and vegetables, and how not everybody has to like the same vegetable. If you only like 2 vegetables, like I tell them, just have your mom buy a lot of them so you can eat them every day. So, for every meal period. So,
Thank you.
Carrie?
Thanks for a very thorough presentation. I do enjoy it. It's very exciting for me to see the collaboration between the food service and the physical education programs with the 60 Minutes Play. I can't remember what the acronym is, but several times you mentioned collaborating with the FIAD teachers, and I think that kind of speaks to Jeff's concern about childhood obesity, but I think for people to understand that connection between input and output, and so I think all of that is very good, and I'd like to see that collaboration across departments.
Yeah, you have some real champions in this district, like Mary Wojcik at Greenbelt Park, who has a before school jump roping club, and just all kinds of, a dance once or twice a month, and just really great free activities to, again, just get the kids involved, social, and so it's really a great thing.
Anyone else? Thank you so much, Pam. I think I would echo what Julie said. It's really fabulous to see beyond just the lunch. Seeing that snack cart at the high school and the after-school snacks. I mean, you really brought child nutrition to the whole day of the kid. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We are now ready to move on for our next item, which is the non-operating fund budget.
Operating funds, they're every bit as important. So as we get started here with the first fund, it is our fiduciary fund, which we track all of our trust fund activity. And as you'll recall, we have one active trust fund within the district. But within this, we track each individual trust or gift to the district individually with their own set of accounts. The Northfield High School Guidance Office manages the process of awarding these scholarships. And as I was including this bullet in the presentation, I felt like just putting a big star with Lee Thorson's name right in the middle of it, because she does an enormous amount of work with, collecting all of the data for the scholarships. I think she begins around January making calls to previous donors who have gifted money and have been so generous in donating scholarships. And she reaches out to them to see if they have interest for this upcoming year in awarding scholarships, and she tracks all of the feedback, and she gathers all the information. So really, as I'm preparing this part of the budget, I call Lee Thorson, and I say, so how are you going with the process, and what do you have so far? And she provides me with just an enormous amount of data. We do have a few non-scholarship accounts within the trust fund budget area that are monitored just to ensure that the expenditures are appropriate according to what the donor's intent was when they originally gifted that to the district, gifted their dollars to the district. The financial picture, of course, the same standard format I always use. That first column of numbers for the 10-11 are the audited financial numbers that were presented to you in the financial audit last November. The middle column of numbers is the budget that we're currently operating within, and then, of course, the far right is our projection for next year, and that's really the information that Lee has been working so hard in gathering and coordinating so that the Guidance Counseling Office and their team can award scholarships as the students apply for them. And you'll notice that each year our revenues are slightly lower than our expenditures, and that is a result of the previous gifts that have been donated to the district, but not necessarily scholarship dollars. We spend them for their intended purpose within the district, but we don't have that stream of money coming in each year like the scholarship program, where it's kind of an in and an out. So that's why our expenditures typically run a little bit higher than our revenues. Until those funds are depleted, then they'll level off and be fairly revenue neutral within this fund category. I should go back and say, so for the 12-13, we're proposing projected revenue to be about $67,000, just over $67,000, with our expenditures at $71,400, leaving us with the projected fund balance at the end of 12-13 of just under $98,000. Our next fund that we are going to talk about tonight is the Internal Service Fund, which we track all of our insurance for dental, and now this year new was our medical that got added into this fund. You'll recall the dental was established back in 2005-06, and the medical was just added this year. The revenue source that comes into this fund is from all of the other funds where employees are paid out of. And it's essentially the premiums that both the district and the employee are paying get moved over into this internal service fund. So we're self-funded in both of those areas now. The expenditures that are reflected in this fund are the actual claims and administration fees that we pay out on behalf of our employees. Medica and Delta Dental are the claims processing agents for us who manage all of our administrative services. They provide all of that, and they process the claims as all of our employees go to their various doctors and dentists. They'll submit those claims directly to Medica. Medica then essentially sends us the bill, and we pay those claims directly out of our internal service fund. The one tricky part of the internal service fund that I added this slide for is oftentimes when we want to look at grand total revenue and expenditures of the district, we talk often that we can't, there's the different categories, the food service, for instance, that Pam just provided you information on. All of the revenues and expenditures can only be directed for the food service, but oftentimes people still want to look at what is the grand total, all of our revenue, all of our expenditures. The one tricky thing about including the internal service fund when doing that is you really count your revenue and your expenditure twice. So it is one category of funds. Even if you want to look at grand total operations of the district, you still really need to exclude the internal service fund. And this graph was my attempt of kind of showing why that is the case. For instance, in the general fund, the food service fund, community service fund, we get all kinds of revenues in from state, local, and federal sources. Then for expenditures on salary and benefits, we pay all those out, they get expended. Now in the case of both dental and medical, those expenses in those top three funds, they get moved down to the internal service fund and they're counted as revenue. So it came in the first time as revenue, then we're moving it over to the internal service fund as revenue. And so if we were to count the internal service fund revenue, we'd essentially be doubling up on those dollars twice. Same with the expenditures. As we pay the benefits for the district's contribution or premium and the employee matches or they pay their contribution, it gets expensed in those top three funds. And then once it's down in the internal service fund and we pay those expenses out for claims, that's the second time we've expended it. It can just get kind of tricky, especially when you want to look at your overall salary and benefit expenditures or trends over the years, and you look at that, you really just want to be careful to exclude the internal service fund. And it's particularly important now in Northfield, since we've added medical, we'll be looking at over $5 million roughly of expenditures on claims and administrative costs in the internal service fund. So it'll be very important to remember that point going forward, because it will skew those numbers in the global scheme of things. Just to give you a little bit of information on the participation for our dental, the average enrollment is roughly 450 employees, 161 of those taking single coverage and 293 taking family coverage. The self-funding for dental has been extremely successful. The district has not needed to increase the premium since they began being self-funded back in 2005, and that's what we're really hoping for on our medical. We're very early in the self-funding for medical, so it's looking good. It's looking very good for the information that we get from our corporate health systems, who's our agent who helps us look at this information. But it is really early on, so we just don't have that solid look like we do on dental. But the single premiums are at $38.07 per month. Family is still $112.21, with administrative costs for both being $6.35 per employee, per participant, I should say. On the medical, for this year so far, the average enrollment has been 393 employees, with 142 taking single and 251 with family. And this premium that I'm providing you is really a blended premium along with the fixed costs. As you'll recall, we have the HRA plan and we have the CMM, the $1,000 deductible plan. And so roughly, when I blend those two premium costs and add in the fixed costs, our single runs around $584 per month, with family $1,481 per month. And again, those include the fixed costs. So our financial look back on this looks a little odd because, again, our audited financial data from 10-11 has just dental in there. We have our 2011-12 budget, which includes the medical. However, since our plan year runs September 1 to August 30th, this reflects only 10 months of what we anticipated to flow through the internal service fund. So when we look at the proposed, we see quite a significant increase. If you just look at the revenues alone in the top section, from $4.6 million in the 11-12 budgeted to $5.7 million. Most of that is just a reflection of a full 12 months versus 10 months, since we didn't start this plan until September of 2011. We are in the process of Molly Bieseman, who really oversees and helps guide our insurance committee, is working on gathering all of those folks on the committee so we can meet and determine what our rates will be next year. So this set of data is very preliminary. By the time I bring you back the budget document in June, it may be slightly changed, and I will make sure to point out any changes that may be present based on the work of the insurance committee that will be soon taking place. This is just a fund summary breakdown. So our proposed, as of now, the very preliminary numbers for the internal service fund. We are looking at ending 12-13 year with an ending fund balance of just over $1.1 million. That would be a reserve, a combination for dental and medical. And right now, currently, we're very aware of the need to build up that reserve for the medical to ensure that we can help mitigate any fluctuations in premium. That was the overall goal when we proposed going to self-funding for medical. And again, early indications is that it's going very well, but we will continue to monitor it closely. And as we set rates for next year and work with corporate health systems through the insurance committee, this may be modified slightly, but early indications are that this should be pretty in line with what we'll be looking at. And like I said, short and sweet, but no less important than our large operating funds. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Yep.
Board members, questions? No?
The administrative cost on your dental program looks to be about, I think it was 4.2%. So I think it's just astounding to administer that program for that amount. I expect there's some dental operations that would love to have that administrative cost.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
John?
Can you explain the trust fund? Again, I guess I'm not clear why we have an ever-declining balance.
Sure. There are a few donations that have been made to the district. One that comes to mind is the Myrtle Houston Trust Fund for Environmental Studies. It was a large donation that came to the district in the past. Each year, we use it to offset costs for some of our middle schoolers to be able to attend. It's a scholarship program for them to be able to attend a trip to Eagle Bluff, yeah. And so those costs happen each year, but the actual donation of revenue came in several years ago. So we don't, whereas some ongoing scholarships, they will have a donor say, we would like to contribute 4 $500 scholarships this year. Those go into the scholarship process that is managed by the high school guidance office, and on their website they have the option for students who are interested to go in and apply for those one of those 4 or $500 scholarships. So the revenue comes in from the donor, goes out to the student who is awarded the scholarship. That's the difference in the two different funding sources, and why we're still spending down those former gifts from previous, like the Myrtle Houston Environmental Trust Fund.
Okay, so I mean, at some point, there's an end to the availability of that scholarship,
Correct.
and but there are other scholarships where there are gifts made each year
Correct.
that are being passed out.
And once those one-time funds are depleted, then we'll see a dollar for dollar revenue in, expenditure out. There are some instances where students apply for the scholarship, but for whatever reason, circumstances arise where they maybe don't complete the year of college, or they're not able to fulfill the requirements of the scholarship. And so, you know, the dollars may have come in but not gone out, because even though they get awarded the scholarship, they have to turn in all the necessary documentation to fulfill, you know, the requirements of proof, you know, confirmation, their invoices from their university, etc. So there are some of those instances that make it not a dollar for dollar on the scholarships, but they're fairly few and far between.
Thank you.
Other questions? Thank you, Stephanie.
You bet.
All right, we have 5 items for individual action. And the first item is the creation of new special ed classrooms, or classroom. Sorry. Dr. Richardson, do you want to-
Okay, and I'll just do this briefly, and then any questions you have, I have Dr. Gary Lewis is here to answer the questions that you might have in terms of detail. And again, we're bringing this to you not because we're looking at additional cost to do this, but because I think anytime we implement a new program in the system, we think it's very important that the board become aware of that. Over the last several years, what we've seen is an increase in the number of students who would fit under the category of developmentally cognitive disability, mild, moderate. Their special education needs are really greater than the needs that can be met in a resource room, but they're not as great as those that are served currently in our low incidence classrooms. And these kids are scattered throughout all 3 elementary buildings in terms of that. Many of these kids also have secondary complications and issues that make it more difficult to support their needs in the resource room, and oftentimes end up using an inordinate amount of the resource room teachers' time trying to help support their additional needs. So what we've done at the middle school and high school is we've actually created programs at middle school and high school to support those needs of those students that fit in between the resource room and the low incidence classrooms. And what is being proposed is really to create a district-wide program similar to that at the elementary level. We're proposing to place it at Sibley Elementary. We have a classroom space next to our current LI classroom that's available for use, and we would be able to use it and without having to displace any of the program. Basically, it would be staff, realigning our existing staff, and so there would be no additional teacher or paraprofessional staff needed to make that happen. We actually have a teacher that is currently pursuing a DCD licensure, and so we would hope that that person would be able to plug in and actually become part of that program. If we do need furniture, that furniture can come through federal special education dollars if we need additional classroom furniture. And also, most of these kids are already being transported on special education buses at this point, and so we're not anticipating really any significant increase in busing costs. But we just wanted you to be aware of this, and I guess what we'd like is your blessing to move forward with this for the 2012-13 year as, again, a strategy for helping us to support and provide the highest quality programming for students that really fit in the niche between resource room and the low incidence classroom, and I think to be more efficient, more effective in terms of how we provide those services, because we can locate it at one location.
So before we take questions, why don't we have a motion on...
I'll move it.
Okay, Noel, move to, and second by Carrie, for the creation of the new special ed classroom. So questions for Dr. Richardson?
Or Dr. Lewis.
Or Dr. Lewis? Okay. Julie?
How many students approximately is it?
We have 5 or 6 students who we really need this special classroom for. They are, as Dr. Richardson said, taking an inordinate amount of time from our resource room, and they really are not fitting well there, and we can do a much better job by targeting their needs. Once we create the program, there are a few other students that we may also look at, but we're really targeting those 5 or 6.
Okay, thank you. Other questions? All right. All board members in favor of approving the motion to have the creation of the new special ed classroom, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Very good. The next item for individual action is ESL staffing. And do you want to say a few words?
I would be happy to say a few words here. And again, both Dr. Lewis and Dave Kraft are here today. So if you have additional questions that they can answer for you. Basically, this is a follow-up to the work that we've been doing, trying to take a look at how to support our ESL kids as they come out of the kindergarten, ESL kindergarten program at Greenville Park and move into the primary grades. And what we're finding is as kids are coming out, some of those kids are going into the Compañeros program, some of them are going into the contemporary program. We're finding that the kids that are going into the Compañeros program, where there's still a significant amount of Spanish instruction, are able to do pretty well in terms of the process. Those kids that are coming into the contemporary program are going from a program where they had significant support in Spanish language to a program that's totally English in terms of focus. What we also know is that regardless, those kids coming out and into that program need more ESL support than we are currently able to provide them. Right now, the ratio of student to teacher at Greenville Park in terms of ESL is about a third as large per teacher as it is in the other 2 buildings. And the reason the other 2 buildings have a lower ratio is that they're having to support kids in K through 5, and there's a few kids scattered across each grade level. Because there are fewer kids scattered across each grade level, we actually need more ESL teaching time in order just to reach the kids in that building. There's a great deal more concentration of English language learners at Greenville Park, and so the ratio or the number of kids per teacher is significantly higher there. We looked at several different options, and we talked about the idea of, well, could we just try to keep all of those kids in the Compañeros program? The problem is if we do, and we are taking and putting all 18 of the ESL kindergartners in the Compañeros program, it really makes it difficult for us to provide the 2/3, 1/3 option that we've been providing for other 2 buildings for the population of ESL students versus the population of Caucasian students. So we looked at that option, said not really a good situation. We also looked at the idea, well, could we move the ESL students who were not able to get in the Compañeros program at Greenville Park to Bridgewater and Sibley and have them go there. But if we do that, both of those programs also have a waiting list, and we would now start bumping students out of their home school in order to provide spaces for students who are coming from Greenville Park. Again, we felt that was not in the best interest of kids. The third piece we believe that makes the greatest sense is simply to expand the amount of ESL support that we're providing for students at Greenville Park, and especially kind of looking at grades 1, 2, and 3 as being the grades where additional ESL support not only would help us address the fact that we have additional ESL students at those levels, but also that that's the time when doing more co-teaching opportunities in the contemporary classroom we believe would have the greatest significant positive impact on our ESL students. And so what we'd like to propose to you would be the idea of basically increasing the amount of ESL staffing at Greenville Park. It basically would address the instructional needs of our kindergarten students who enroll in the contemporary program beginning in first grade. It basically maintains the parental choice across all 3 buildings. It basically maintains the integrity of the existing lottery program that we have in all 3 buildings. And this year we are going to be in a situation where all 3 buildings will have more students requesting placement in compañeros than we have spaces. And again, that was something we purposefully chose to do in order to make sure that we had a full enrollment of compañeros in first grade, and that the enrollment there was at least a few students more than the contemporary classroom size. So even if we lost kids going through the next several years, we'd still keep a large compañeros classroom. And again, moving towards having, again, the single section of compañeros all the way through each building. And basically, it provides increased ESL support, balances the student-teacher ratios across the elementary buildings, and it targets additional support, I think, exactly where we need it in terms of our ESL students at grades 1, 2, and 3 at Greenville Park. So, again, our proposal to you at this time would be to add an additional 1.0 FTE of ESL staffing, and again, to support those students, and basically bring the ratios of student-teacher ratios at the 3 buildings into alignment, and also provide that additional support. So that's really the proposal that we have. And again, I would be happy to let both Dave and Gary answer any questions that you might have.
All right, board members, why don't we have there's a motion on the table, and then we can get into questions. So can I have a motion from someone to approve the ESL staffing position?
I'll move.
Carrie moves. Second by Noel. All right, questions for Dr. Richardson or Dr. Lewis or Mr. Kraft? No? Okay, go ahead, Carrie.
I think, I'm glad you brought this to us. I think it's just critically important that we get kids on the path to literacy in both of their languages as early as possible. And as far as adding staff to a particular building, the staff goes where the children need them. So I think that makes perfectly good sense. And it's my understanding that this person is this 1.0 FTE is going to be at Greenville, right?
Correct. We'll be at Greenville Park, and we'll really be focused on grades 1, 2, and 3 students that are currently in the contemporary program. Although there may be some additional support across into compañeros as needed, but it's really those are the years where we have the greatest need for the ability to have not only English instruction, but also continued literacy instruction in Spanish and continued ESL support for those students who are in a otherwise English-only curriculum in terms of contemporary.
John?
Can I just get a clarification?
Sure.
Where this person is, this is not a person who is. This is not an ESL kindergarten teacher. That there is an ESL kindergarten teacher.
We have an ESL kindergarten teacher right now.
ESL person providing support to
grades 1, 2, and 3.
ESL students who are not in the compañeros program.
Correct.
And not otherwise getting.
Well, right now, if they're getting service, they're getting a very limited level of service because we're having to spread the current compañeros staffing across grades 1 through 5. And again, we have the largest percentage. Dave, you quoted me the percentage this afternoon. What's our percentage of Latino students currently at
Greenville Park?
Greenville Park.
26%.
26% of our student population.
And, 21% LEP.
Okay. So basically a fifth of the students at Greenville Park are LEP students. About 25% of the students are Latino students.
I think it's also important to remember that not only does Greenville Park have the highest percentage of our English language learners, they also have the highest percentage of students entering our system that qualify as non-English speaking, which is to say they have the most students that require ESL services, and they have the students that need the most ESL services because they have the lowest English scores. And if you recall, the students that we're putting into our ESL kindergarten are not only those students who score the lowest in English, but it's the combination of scoring the lowest in English and Spanish. So they're coming in with the lowest language scores across the whole district. And just one quick caveat. Each fall, we assign our ESL students based on our ESL teachers based on the number of students and the needs across our district. Right now, we would look at that and we would say, yes, that one FTE is going to go to Greenville Park. In the fall, it might be 0.8, 0.9, 0.75, depending upon the distribution of students across. But the purpose of this staffing is to address this need of those students at Greenville Park. I just can't guarantee where the numbers are going to be in the fall because my crystal ball isn't any better than anybody else's. So.
It's still foggy.
It is still foggy.
Ann?
I just wanted to ask about our English language learners in general and what kinds of trends we're seeing with other languages coming into our district for our English language learners. Most of them are Spanish, from Spanish.
We are still at about 97% of our English language learners are native Spanish speakers. We do have some other students who are coming to us who are native from other languages. And it's a wide range from Russian to Ukrainian and a number of languages. But what's interesting is if you look at students that are coming with other languages, some are coming that are already bilingual. They may be being adopted into families, and so while their first language was not English, they've been raised in an English-speaking household. Or some of them are, quite frankly, children of professors at the universities, and they're quite bilingual and quite literate when they come to us, although, again, English was not their first language.
Thanks. Julie?
I just wanted to comment on the early success or apparent success of the ESL kindergarten program. I mean, when we talked about it, it seemed like it was going to be a really good model, and it appears that it will be. So that's congratulations on that. Now, this ESL staffing is going to be for those students who choose to go to the contemporary program, correct? That's where the need is identified?
It is those students who, for whatever reason, did not make it into the Compañeros program, either because of the luck of the draw or because the parents chose contemporary, or in some cases, that's sort of just what happened.
Is it about half, or is it the majority going to contemporary, or how is that percentage playing out?
Well, there's a little bit of a shift here this year. I had 33 applicants for the Compañeros program this year, and next year, currently, in the letters we sent out for programming for first grade, I'll have 12 Latino families in the Compañeros first grade and 15 majority students, English-speaking students. So it's a little bit of a shift. It was 1/3, 2/3 would be about 9, and there's an increase this year.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess I wanted to just say that I think we would be penny wise and pound foolish to not do this with the ESL kindergarten. I mean, I'm happy that we've made that investment, and I think we need to follow up on it if those students need that kind of help. So I think it's the right thing to do. So we have a motion and a second on the table. All those in favor of approving the ESL staffing as described, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next item is the fees for student activities for 2012-2013.
And I've asked Tom Groutman to be here tonight. I tried stoically to stand in Tom's stead at the last meeting and hopefully gave you the overview, but the person that I know has all the details and information for you that you might have in terms of questions is seated right over there. What I want to do is just again to kind of reinforce the proposal that we're providing to you, and then would like to be able to have the board ask any questions that they might have so that Tom can share those with you. Again, if you remember, the discussion around this was the idea of looking at an approach that was presented to us from the Activities Advisory Committee, asking us to take a look at the level of the waiver fees that we would have in place beginning in the fall of 2012. And currently, as you I'm sure remember, basically those students who qualify for free reduced lunch or those students that are having other financial hardships are able to get 100% of their activity fees waived. And basically the Activities Advisory Committee is recommending that we make some modifications to put this more in line with the percentages that we currently are seeing for the community services program, also more in line with what we're seeing more and more of our neighboring school districts look at, and also what the Community Action Council uses as their guidelines for working with the portion or the percentage of the cost of a particular fee or program is based on free or reduced lunch availability. And again, remembering that we're talking about a 20%, asking students and parents to pay 20% if they're on free and reduced meal program, and 40% on the reduced meal program. And then the idea that if they don't qualify for free and reduced but have a short-term or other type of financial hardship, they may have a fire, they may have a parent may have lost a job, or any number of other kinds of pieces. They'd be able to submit an application for a scholarship, and if granted, they would be able to get a reduction. So again, they might have to pay no more than 20%, but at least 20% of the activity fee. And then you'll notice on the back side, again, is the list that shows you for athletics for high school and middle school, right now, kind of the current full fee costs, what free meal percentage of the fee would be, what reduced meal percentage would be for each of the activities that we have. And also, we address the full family limit with the idea that again, full family for a free meal is 20% of the full family for a full pay, and reduced is at 40%. So again, we tried to get that to match up with what we were doing for the individual activities. I know that some of you have some additional questions, and again, I'd like to offer the ability for those questions to be asked, and I think you need to probably decide you want to do a motion and then go forward from there.
Okay. Very good. So, board members, could I have a motion on the table? Jeff?
So moved.
Okay. A second by Julie. All right. I'm sure we have questions. Ann?
I'm just wondering about if we get some students who really have clear need and can't participate at all, even at these levels. I just remember over the years having a slot where I could put in an extra $10 on the soccer fees or whatever to help that. Are we still going to have, just in case we find that odd circumstance where somebody really wants to participate and can't even quite pay this, or is that gone?
Honestly, I think that no matter who the child is, we're going to find a way for that child to play. Mm-hmm. I think that needs to be clear. With that, though, we're not planning on writing anything into this policy like that, because once we do, it's going to be, well, I qualify, and so do I, and so do I. So that, I think that list would just multiply. But again, just speaking with one of the coaches, say, that randomly stopped into my office and we got into a conversation, he looked at me and he right eye to eye and he said, "Tom, you know we're going to find a way for all of them to play." And I believe that we'll do that. But again, we're not writing that into the policy. As far as the goodwill donors, and we have those folks. You're one, and there's many others that do that. I need to think about that because that was brought up today. As far as, do we put that into our form? Once we put that onto our form, then it looks like it's again the angel fund that we have, and that's basically what we currently have with our booster club. So I need to think about that and before I put the final down on paper. But really, the whole intent is to stay with this 20%, 40%, and go from there. Again, I can't imagine turning any child away. We'll figure something out.
Great.
But I think the key piece is really the Booster Club has been the angel fund for activities. Right. And any of the additional donations that individual people wrote when they sent in their fees also went into that same pool of money. So it's not that we're now have an ability to create an additional new angel fund that didn't exist before. At the same time, and I think as we talk about this, we do need to kind of take a look at what are other districts doing, and what do we know about whether having a small percentage payment by those individuals has in districts significantly reduced the participation of students in the program. Because if you remember several years ago when we went through the budget cutting process, there was a real fear on the part of folks that when we raised the activity fees for everybody, that we'd see a significant drop-off in terms of participation. I think the reality is our participation is probably as strong as ever.
It's very good. We're certainly not losing people, and I don't foresee losing people for this change either. In other conversations today, I think bigger factors besides the activity fee are just other costs and other situations associated with participation, and that might be transportation costs, extra food, shoes, for certain activities. So there's all these other costs that, in my mind, prohibit or are more difficult to deal with for families than a $31 activity fee. And that's really the average of what it would be a $31 activity fee at the high school for a normal, I'll say normal, kind of middle-of-the-road athletic program that we offer. And what I mean by that is how we tier our activities, with some sports being more because of the cost per participant, and then others not being as expensive to play. So that's where I see bigger factors, and in conversations with families, with students, with coaches, I think those are bigger factors to deal with. And we try to make allowances and figure those things out too. So the activity fee is one piece, but that's, I think, again, one of the smaller factors of what prohibits some people to play.
Thanks. It sounds like you've really thought hard about it, and it seems like, I appreciate all those comments and putting it all together.
It's really what I do. I know in, again, other conversations, it is very important that I track and monitor moving forward, just like I have in the past, and see, okay, just does it affect participation? In dialogue with other schools and information coming back from their schools, they have not seen any kind of loss in participation, not only overall, but in any demographic group. So that's the good news. And I think one of the positives I'm hoping will be that we'll get kids to stay in the program and not drop out. And if they drop out one year, the chance of them coming back a second or third or fourth year diminishes. So keeping them in the program, it's something that we need, and we're thinking that our programs are so good that it's something that they benefit greatly as well.
Carrie?
I just want to clarify one thing, because I think there has been some confusion, at least in some people who talked to me about this. We're not increasing the fees that flow to the district.
Correct.
If we do this. all we're doing is adjusting the portion of that fee that is paid by the participant versus paid by the scholarship fund, whether that be the booster club or the donations that people make.
That is absolutely right. There's no more money coming into the district.
Yeah.
And the district is not, for lack of a better term, losing any money either.
Yeah.
It's basically a wash that way.
Yeah.
Correct.
And I know we talked earlier today, and I appreciate you spending so much time with me on that. And, you know, as I told you, I'm really concerned about whether this is going to reduce participation. And I know you do track this very carefully. So if we do this, I do hope that you'll be back after this year and report on the participation levels. And, you know, beyond just the numbers, I guess I would be looking for a kind of anecdotal, you know, like you mentioned the coach, you know, we're going to find a way. You know, we took some extra money to fund social workers at a higher level than had been planned for next year. So we've got some people who this board expects to pay attention to, our neediest students. And I just hope that the coaches will really be on the lookout for those kids who may just have a talent but not bother to ask because they don't have the $21 or the $31. And that there will be a robust effort to find those kind of angel sponsors in the community, because this community loves its children and wants them to participate. And so, you know, I guess that's what I'm looking for when you come back next year, is not just the hard numbers, but some of those anecdotal stories of how we're supporting students who might not otherwise have an opportunity to participate.
Yes.
Yes.
And that was very
Yes.
well said, Carrie. Thank you. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that covers all of my concerns.
I had a parent come to me after the had read the information in the minutes at the Northfield News, saying this gives a little bit more clout to his recommendation that his son or daughter now either mow another lawn, shovel a little bit more, or babysit a little bit more, just as an incentive to be able to provide part of their support for the activities program. And he thanked us for doing that.
Thank you. One of our esteemed coaches, when I presented this to coaches, didn't seem like it was falling in line with some of his beliefs. And I noticed that. And we spoke the next day as he came back into my office for a conversation. And he said, Tom, now that I think about it, it's the right thing to do. And basically, Noel, it's almost the same story. He said, if I put it in perspective now, if somebody really wants to play the sport that I coach, if they really want to get there, it really is going to, you know, add up to mowing 2 lawns this summer, and that's it, and then it's done. So, and this is a coach that certainly, just like our other coaches, it's just a, you know, put the dipstick in and test, or a barometer type, and that's how our coaches all are. They do not want to lose their kids, and that's why, Carrie, what you said so eloquently is something we're going to need to follow. The kids that are in our programs, we can't lose. We need those kids.
Other questions, John?
I mean, it may not affect overall participation, but it certainly could affect some participation. I mean, you're talking about families that we've already determined they can't pay $12.50 a week for lunch. And so 30 or 40 bucks is a much bigger deal than it might seem to the rest of us. So there's certainly a possibility that 2 or 3 kids might not show up, and nobody goes out and makes an outreach effort. Nobody does a fundraiser. Nobody gives money for those kids to come participate. And we just lose them, and you don't notice them in the overall program, right? I mean, that's certainly possible.
It's possible. I'm hoping it's not likely, because our coaches do know who the kids are. They know who they're coming in from the middle school. They've known our kids from year to year. And the other thing to think about, this is not really different than what a lot of our kids are used to from association play, because now we're seeing a lot more within our own community that it may cost $25 to play, no matter what the family situation is financially. It may cost $50 to play, depending on what the sport association is asking. So it's really, again, kind of in line with what we're seeing within our community. So I don't believe, and I wouldn't be proposing this, and our Activities Advisory Committee would not be moving this forward if we really thought this was going to hurt kids or be detrimental. I think we run a risk of losing kids anyway if we don't do anything, that we always have to reach out and watch for our kids. And again, just to repeat myself, I think our coaches know, who's been in the program and who they need to try to corral and get back and make sure that they're part of the program.
The other thing, too, that I mentioned last time is also think about the fact that basically the dollars that currently are generated for scholarships through the Booster Club and through any additional donations that people are making to their activity fees is a finite amount of money. And basically what I think we need to remember is that by doing this, we actually expand the number of kids that we can support by doing this. And I think it's important to understand that that's kind of the other side of the coin here, is that by having a small amount of cost, and in this case, you're looking at somewhere between, for most kids, between $20 and $30 to play most of the major sports. That by having a small amount that they're responsible for, we actually significantly increase the number of students that can be supported at that rate. And I think that's a good piece. I think we also talked about the fact that it is important, I think, for students to have that sense of commitment to the activity, and not to necessarily be in a situation where there's been a little bit of skin in the game for them. And as you said, if it's mowing that second lawn or whatever, I think there is some positives there that come from the fact that they are part of the fabric of creating the money that's needed to run those sports activities.
Carrie? I'm just thinking about anticipating if this passes and you come back and report next year on how it's gone. Also to get some analysis on whether the 20% and 40% is the right place to cut it. And I don't know what magic you would need to do to get that kind of information, but whether 10%, 25% might be the more appropriate places, or but I think John makes a very good point. $34 maybe isn't a lot to some of our families, but it's a very significant amount of money to some people, and so I support this, but quite reluctantly. But I'm looking forward to the report that will come back and having an opportunity to revisit it if the board does support it and we have some history on it.
I think the Activities Advisory landed on those percentages based on what we saw with community services, because it's pretty close to those same percentages. I know that, Hannah, there's a little bit more of a range, perhaps, with community services. Right.
May I think the point that more kids can participate because you're spreading your scholarship dollars farther by having the students who receive a scholarship contribute a small amount. That means one more kid can participate. That's how we look at it. And our numbers have gone up. We did it because we were seeing more and more requests for scholarships, and we just didn't have any money to cover it. So, we were in a different situation, I think, that way. But, the response from the participants has been very positive. That they do appreciate that, and it's the same thing. It's a way to do a task that will help you get resource and put that skin in the game.
Well, I would be thrilled if we saw the participation numbers in the children that are economically challenged go up. I'm a little skeptical. I think we'll know soon. Tom, you were saying that the fall sports are the highest percentage of
Correct.
students, so
Yes.
we potentially would know at the end of September what sort of impact this had, if any.
Right, and for sure October, because we like to let that season play out too, because the other part with this is we're hoping to really retain those students throughout the entire season, and that's been a big issue too, where if there hasn't been any pay toward the activity, certainly the largest percent of students that we've seen drop the activity have been those that have not paid anything. So it'll be, I would say, sometime in September, for sure October.
Okay.
And then also, Carrie, to answer your question, is that percentage really right? I don't know, but we'll have to see. And we did base it off that, and then also what the high school is doing with their curricular program at 20 and 40%. So we felt that to have some sort of consistency, that would be the place to go.
I actually had looked, you had mentioned like 13 different districts that had done it, and Faribault, it looked like, was at 80% and 60%.
Yes.
Which was really, kind of broke my heart. So I'm glad to see that we didn't feel like we had to go to that extent. I recognize that, we have a finite amount of money, and the idea of trying to serve more students is what we want to do. And I was really happy to hear you say we're not trying to turn students away, because if they can overcome the fact we don't have an after-school activity bus, and we're not giving them, $100 pair of tennis shoes, they're having to mow the lawn for that too, that, we want to try to still see them participate. So I really hope that it plays out that way and that we can serve more students.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we all do.
John?
I don't question Tom's goodwill in proposing this or thinking it through and the time and effort he's put into this. But, for people who live in real grinding poverty, that idea of you can mow 2 extra lawns and this will take care of it, that's really a pretty fatuous middle class answer to a real problem. And for people, again, who can't afford $12.50 a week for lunch, this could present a huge barrier. And I think that you're not going to know who doesn't participate. And we're not going to find out. The board certainly isn't going to find out if some kids drop out because their parents won't let them participate because they think they need that $40 for something else. So I don't support this, and I'm not going to vote for it.
I think we'll have a much better sense, though, once we actually get the data from next fall. If we're looking at overall percentage of participation, and we don't see that percentage drop, we see those numbers stay the same or go up, John, and our number of students entering the high school is the same, and our percentage of free and reduced lunch remains approximately the same. I think that still gives us a pretty good sense of what is happening in terms of the number of students that are continuing and being able to participate.
And with respect to both you and Tom, it's not the percentages that I think matters. It's 1 or 2 or 3 kids in any one sport that decide they can't afford to participate. This is a public school. We're here to provide a public service, and that to me is one of the services we provide. That opportunity for the good that sports do, the good that those activities do for those kids. And if their parents say you can't go because we don't have $34 to spare, that you mowed those 2 or 3 or 4 extra lawns, but you know what? We had to use it to pay for something else. We used it to buy the shoes that you're going to wear to school. That's the statistics aren't going to tell us which kids didn't make it through. And it's not about a percentage, there isn't going to be maybe there won't be a percentage point drop. I bet you're probably right, there won't be a percentage point drop. But there will be some kids who don't participate. And that's what I'm concerned about.
Board members, any other comments or questions?
I was just going to say that, I mean, I hope that in a way with one of your coaches, as they said, we're going to find a way. We're going to find a way for, and I hear that, Mike, you know, I have a lot of compassion for that response. You know, how do we can identify these kids, but how do we, you know, if there is, you know, I mean, if there is some kind of an angel fund or something available, I don't know, off the record or whatever, you know, I guess that, I just think that we do need a policy in place, and I think that that's something that maybe even through, as you said, for what the numbers are for the fall, you know, if we run through the fall and see what the numbers are, you know, maybe we can decide that. But I mean, you know, for things like that, if there's a coach that comes in and says, I know this guy and this guy, they don't have anything. How do we come up with that? You know, $15, $20, $30. I know that's because that's what we were kind of trying to get away from. In the other, we had $18,000. That's kind of the slush fund anyway. That was from the booster club. So I mean, maybe as Tom was alluding to in an earlier conversation with me, is maybe, you know, these fees are all there. I would actually go the other way to say that I think that within your budget, you should have 100% of those fees put in your budget, period. So nobody goes without. That's the total opposite of what he's talking about. So everyone could, you know, participate, whether or not whatever they wanted to contribute. So, but I think, you know, the question is, and out of that is maybe there is a percentage, and I think maybe the consensus is yes, let's get a little bit skin in the game, but what is the number? And for sure, if it's about a family, you know, and it's $10, $20, $30 they can't come up with, I mean, that's ridiculous that somehow we don't find a solution for that. And maybe the percentage works out a little bit different, that it's not 20 and 40, but I think Hannah's, you know, basically what you're doing is you're leveraging your money out a little bit further. You're leveraging your money out, but I think we also have to have a plan and some compassion for, you know, the people that John's, you know, talking about and kind of go from there. So that's what I hear him saying anyway.
Yeah, and John, I really get what you're talking about too. I think the big thing that would prevent a lot of students or any student from participating are just family circumstances. I think some of our kids would love, even right now, to participate, and they would qualify with a free waiver, but some just can't do it because they need to be at home because they're the oldest brother or oldest sister. And I think there's so many family situations that unfortunately are preventing some kids that would want to participate. So I see so many other challenges and talk with other kids and parents about all these other challenges that prevent them from starting the activity. And that's with, there's no cost, there's no activity fee, and some students unfortunately still can't do that. They like to, but they're just not able to because of what they need to do at home.
Reading data.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second on the table in support of the activity fee waiver guidelines as proposed with the percentages in front of you. So all of those board members in favor of approving this motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
No.
Do roll call.
Stratton,
Aye.
Pinnell,
Aye.
Pritchard,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Maple,
No.
Iverson,
Aye.
Fossum.
No.
Motion carries 5-2.
All right, we're ready to move on to the next item for individual action, which was the revision to policy 514, the bullying prohibition and the kind of clarification of the definition. Dr. Richardson, do you want to speak at all to that?
Yes, again, just the copy of that modification is in your packet, and again, we're really just addressing the definition of bullying, trying again to be really clear in terms of the components that must be in place for an action to be identified as a bullying action, and again to remind you that this reflects the best practice and thought of a number of groups, and is using language that was developed from Olveus, which is also the language that we've seen with Hazelden and a number of other organizations, including the U.S. Department of Education and other folks, in terms of trying to get a clear description of bullying. All the rest of the reporting requirements, all of the rest of the district action, reprisal issues, training, education, and all of the things that are included in the actual citizenship handbook remain the same. This just makes very clear as to what the definition is.
All right. Do we have a motion to approve this revision? Moved by Ann. Is there a second? Second by Carrie. All those in favor of approving the revision to the bullying prohibition policy, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. The last item for individual action is a resolution for termination and non-renewal of probationary licensed staff. And we need a motion and a second, and then it'll be a roll call vote.
So moved.
Moved by Julie. Second by Jeff. So, Danita, roll call vote?
Scramblin,
Aye.
Pinelli,
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
Nelson,
Aye.
Maple,
Aye.
Dawson,
Aye.
and Iverson.
Aye. Motion carries. All right, items for consent grouping. Board members, you had some additional items in the consent grouping for personnel items and a resignation added. Any motion to approve the consent grouping? Moved by Ann, second by Noel. All those in favor of approving the consent grouping, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Items for information. There are a couple different items for information that are policy revisions that I think Dr. Richardson, you wanted to...
Yeah, just very briefly, these are, we have actually had several that have come through from MSBA. A couple of them simply required us to use a different word to describe an individual, including specifically individuals with disabilities. There have been some adjustments in the wording used. We didn't feel that those really need to be brought to the board because there was no substantive change of any kind. These two policies, 515 and 530, basically have some additional pieces in them. In 515, kind of the key pieces we wanted to alert you to, we're proposing adding an additional piece of directory information. And that is middle school and high school student athletic physical examination expiration date. The reason that we'd like to get that into directory information is that helps parents to know when their kid's physical date is and if they need to get a physical renewed. So that's really just trying to help parents as they work through that. There's another section on page 10 where you see a section struck. And again, this is the one that Danita did check directly with MSBA to see what was going on with that. And in fact, the issue under section 21 on page 10 concerning registering of sex offenders, other individuals, that particular act of 1994 was repealed. And so instead of just repealing that and creating a new section 21, they kind of crossed it out and then added a section about the Secretary of Agriculture and what they do with child nutrition information, which is one of the groups that has access to free and reduced price lunch info. So please be aware it really is not changing anything in terms of the privacy, because we're not dealing with the privacy situation for convicted sex offenders. But this has now been removed out of the policy. Previously, it was required to be in the policy. So that piece has changed. The only other place that we have is, again, the same reference to 42 U.S.C. 14071, and again, that's been removed again because of the fact that that particular law has been repealed. The other policy then, which is 530, in terms of immunization requirements, there's adjustments being made there. Again, modifying the information for homeschool students, where before they were having to report every year. Now they report just their first year of homeschooling in Minnesota, and again for grade 7, and really changing the requirements in terms of what they need to do as far as providing us information. The other piece that's a change is requirements in terms of the of stating very clearly the form for requesting exemption from immunization, and also the notification that we do for parents regarding the failure to provide required documentation, which, as you know, if a parent doesn't have the required documentation as far as immunizations or their waiver request, then basically we are required by law to not allow them to come to school. So it's important that we get these pieces in place. The other interesting piece was the letters that were are the backup for this in terms of information that we have to actually send out to parents. What we found out is after sending those to the department, the copies of the ones created by MSBA, the Department of Health did not like the letters that they'd created and asked us to continue to use the letters that we currently have with some minor modifications. So we will have some slightly different letters to send out on immunization next fall. So that's really the sum and substance of the modifications of these two policies. Because they do more than simply change a name or a word, we felt both of these will need to come back through for a second reading and approval at our next meeting.
Okay, very good. Future meetings. Monday, May 14th is our next regular school board meeting. I would like to remind the public there is still one more technology presentation tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the middle school, in the media center. And if for some reason you can't attend, I know Matt's posted a lot of information now, a video and a bulleted list that kind of describes some of the things that are on his mind and on the district's mind. So please remember that. And
I was going to say, Matt did a very nice job in terms of really coordinating this effort on Saturday, and he and I were both at the session on Saturday. I think the really important thing for people to understand is if they just want to come to find out what are we thinking about, what is this, could this possibly look like, why are we interested in technology transformation at this time, it'll give them an opportunity to hear about it and also to see some examples of digital textbooks and all of the other kinds of resources that are available, and also an opportunity to give us some direct feedback in terms of what they see as the strengths of this technology transformation, what concerns they have, which we're adding to our list of 60-plus questions of concerns that we need to have responses to, and also then what they see as maybe the 5 most important things that we should be thinking about going forward. We had a very robust conversation with about 20 people on a kind of a drizzly Saturday morning, and so do hope that other individuals will attend tomorrow night.
Great. And then please note that our board meeting will not be on Memorial Day, but will be Tuesday, May 29th for the second meeting in May. All right. Motion for adjournment.
Move adjourn.
Second.
Moved by Noel, seconded by John. All those in favor of adjourning the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.